Hey there! We'd love for you to hit that subscribe button. By subscribing, you're helping us spread the word and connect with more amazing people like you.
Welcome to We Be Parents, where parent doctors Matthew Letterman and Alona Pulday explore current parenting topics, share stories, and help bring families closer together.
Welcome back to We Be Parents. Last week, we explored a subtle but powerful shift, how the way we show up energetically can change not just how we feel, but how the world feels to us.
Today, we're going to bring it home, though. We're going to really help people understand through some letters from our listeners and some headlines what it's like to practice and the ups and the downs and how to navigate them. You know, I think it's so interesting to me to really understand that your nervous system has the power to generate love, that we can shift our physiological states if we want to. When we get up in the morning, we are not, these managers of our circumstances, but we can actually show up and shift how we show up, which affects not only the people around us, but it affects how we feel minute to minute.
Yeah.
It's very powerful to really connect to that.
Very. We talk about it on an intellectual level, the bidirectional messaging that comes from the body to the brain to the body. And, you can feel happy thoughts and smile, or you can smile and cultivate that sense of joy. And I love the practice as you practice and connect to, that really resonates not just on an intellectual level, but in a felt sense.
And it's so much more important in the felt sense.
Yes.
I'm all about intellect. Growing up, the only things that were valued were intellect and grades. And what do you think about that? And even if someone asks you how you feel, you actually tell them what you think. It's rarely do you share how you're feeling. But the felt sense is where that aliveness lives. And there's not only aliveness, there's wisdom in that felt experience. So, when you let it shine, people feel it. And it's like a game changer.
Yeah.
And at the same time, I've been there, and I'm imagining there's people listening that are like, yeah. I know feelings are good, but they sort of blow it off a little bit. And my invitation is to really deepen into that felt experiential world, because a lot of people think they're going to feel happiness when they get to some finish line. And no matter how much money you make, no matter what promotions you get, that is not where you create the joy that we're talking about.
Yeah, I think even if you can't get to the felt space yet, this lives even in our intellect. How we think about our situations, how we think about our circumstances, and then how we think to show up in that environment. And then slowly we start valuing the felt sense, and then maybe connecting to that and seeing how differently that embeds.
Yeah. I mean, when our spirits lead us instead of our thoughts, when our internal hearts and energy lead us instead of external. I like what you said last week. Do you want to share about the external sort of being the leader? And
yeah, I think we often chase connection from the outside in. We're hoping to get seen by others, but really the most powerful shift that we can do for ourselves is to see ourselves. And when we fully see ourselves and show up, there's a natural shining that happens in that.
Exactly. I love it.
But I think a lot of times we don't value that. One, because it's a standalone. So what if I see myself? We're programmed to seek external validation. We're programmed to strive for more, to strive for better, to get praise. All of that coming from the outside in, and we're not really taught to show up as ourselves, to live in our integrity and in the values that we hold dear.
Yeah, exactly. And we can do a quick recap. Last week, we talked about this reverse fame circuit to feel the warmth in our body, let it generate the smile and the love, and offer that as a gift, not a test to other people. And they respond to you, like I was experiencing on the mountain. I talked about that last week. They respond to you in a way that I imagine when you're famous, people come up to you and are like, oh, they're smiling and you're really being seen. And you can show up in a way that creates that sense of connection and love and being seen by people without being famous.
Yeah. I love that. And, the reminder for me also is the mirror neurons that happen. I often think of the movie Inside Out, which I thought was a brilliant movie, and reminding us of the different parts that live within us. But we all have a joy. We all have a sadness. We all have an anger. We all have a fear. We all have a disgust. And they all live together. And if anger has been the resonant voice, and that's how we choose to show up, sometimes we need that help. Your joy allows my joy to get connected to that, allows my joy to come back alive and back online. And so you choosing that path really invites and gives permission to others to do the same. And it just is a reciprocal benefit that just is a gift that keeps giving.
Yeah. And when we lead with guardedness, we get that guardedness back.
Yes.
Whatever we put out there, we tend to get back.
When we turn fear online, that's the visual image that I get. When I'm running on my fear, I'm inviting your fear to come back online.
Yeah. And we want our kids to talk to us, but when they talk to us and we're not present, it feels so deflating that they stop talking to us. Mm-hmm. So I gave the example last week about the watermelon and Jordan sharing her watermelon. And I could have easily been busy and be like, oh yeah, that's great, Jordan. I'm glad your watermelon was good. Versus really be with her. She was celebrating and feeling joy around that and taking a minute to really just be with her.
Oh, I like that. That's rich, actually, because what you just connected to and what I'm going to name is that your mirror neurons will only fire if you're present to allow that to happen. So her celebration, if you're present to that, your mirror neurons have an opportunity to rise and to meet that. But if you're distracted in the past or in the future or completely somewhere else, there's no opportunity for that mirroring to happen.
Yes. And then we start having blocks of our life energy, which then create these coping mechanisms. Mm-hmm. So I'm sure, lots of people, including myself, have been with, as kids trying to share something, could have been with a parent or a teacher, and you didn't get the sense that they really heard you, saw you, and received you. So you start to tone yourself down and not share as a way to avoid that pain. Mm-hmm. So it depends if the parents want to be, want that connection, you have to show up in a way that creates an environment where they feel safe and excited to share. And if you've created that wound, which we all do to some extent, we do the best we can as parents, you can heal that by naming it and practicing it and rebuilding that trust.
Yeah, I love that. So should we dive into some of the stories we wanted to share?
Go ahead.
All right. Parents actually from Las Vegas shared a heartfelt moment on TikTok that went viral. They dropped off their 3-year-old son for his first day of preschool. Both parents found themselves overwhelmed with emotion. The mom captured the moment in a video showcasing the genuine tears and feelings that many parents experience during these milestones. And the boy, on the other hand, had a wonderful day and was eager to return to school, highlighting the contrast between the parents and the children. That's a moment of watermelon, that was missed, because here's this child so excited to come back to school, and we're caught up in our own story and our own emotion. not present to the moment, not present to their experience, not even able, and in that presence, not even able, or in that lack of presence, not even able to hold both.
Right. And that makes it very difficult for the child to show up fully if the parent gets hijacked by their own experience. Now, that happens, but what we can do is we can name it. We can even say, hey, I see how excited you are, and I'm getting caught up with something in me. Can we come back and I can celebrate with you fully because I need to tend to this for a minute or two? That honesty also preserves authenticity while also holding space for their needs. And then you can come back and do it later.
Yes, that's the both and or, and as you graduate and in the black belt scenario is I see how excited you are and how happy you are, and I'm going to miss you. And those are my tears.
Yeah.
The both and, so that there's opportunity there's space for both of those truisms.
And if you don't name the both and you either focus on yourself, that's going to be disconnecting. But if you try to force your sadness down and pretend that you're celebrating them, it's still not going to feel right. That happens a lot with empathy, where people are angry, but they're using empathic words and the other person doesn't soften because their body knows that what that person's saying and what they're feeling are incongruent.
Yes. It's not authentic and it's felt.
So what matters is what's felt, not the words coming out of your mouth. That's a core principle of nonviolent communication consciousness. It has nothing to do with the words. It's about the energy behind the words. So another story is this from a few years ago, where a mother and a child with severe autism shared her experiences of masking her true feelings with a fake smile. And she used that to navigate social expectations and judgments. And she described the emotional toll of constantly appearing composed while dealing with challenging situations, emphasizing the need for authenticity and the courage to express genuine emotions. And we've talked about that and it actually is quite off-putting when someone has this perma-grin and smile, but we know that they can't be, and in fact, they'll be smiling as they're talking about trauma or sadness or they're upset or their anger, and it's just a smile all the time. And there's a disconnection there. It's a little bit, it's incongruent, right?
Oh yeah. And you feel that. It's almost, you described it in the last episode, when you're taking a picture and you smile and you're not really feeling that joy. And we talk about it, you don't see it in their eyes. And so it's a permagrin, but there's sadness or flatness in their eyes. And so that inauthenticity, that lack of congruence, creates a tension that you're not sure what to do with. And we talked about that in the last episode too. Presence doesn't mean yes, it's beautiful when we can connect to joy, but not every moment we can cultivate that joy. Some moments are sad and some moments stimulate anger. And so being authentic is allowing for all of those, and being present is allowing for all of those. But in that vulnerable presence, there's a magic that happens too. And I talked about it in the last episode, but I'll just summarize it here, is that I use music often I don't even connect to that, but like to express my own emotions when they're hard for me to express. But you guys know that now. And when you're hearing a song that says, oh, Alona's feeling sad, there's this beautiful, empathic presence that I get from you, from Jordan, from Kylie, allowing me to be seen, because that's the whole point. We want to be seen. We also want to learn how to cultivate joy, because that's something that is foreign and we don't do enough of. But there's also that desire to be seen in our authenticity, which ironically is, I think, what allows us down the line to cultivate the joy, because it provides that safety to do so.
Right. And an important caveat is we want to be seen with our full authentic selves. We want to be seen with our full aliveness and have that be received. Because a lot of people, to belong, will make themselves small or shrink or hide part of themselves. And even if you're seen, but you're not authentic, you don't feel fully alive. It doesn't meet the need.
Right. You strive harder to be seen for who you're not.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And that's it. It doesn't work. That it's interesting with the smile and the picture. You said that for me, I can't hide how I'm feeling. You said that people always know how I'm feeling, and I noticed that if I try to smile in pictures, it'll look fake unless I'm really connecting to my body about what I'm happy about. So it's interesting that I wonder if that's a common thing for people, or are models just always feeling joy, or what do you think?
Well, I think the professional actors learn
to connect to that,
to either connect to that emotion. A lot of method actors do that, right? They connect to whatever the emotion is, whether it's an unpleasant or pleasant one, and really dive into that space so that they can personify it.
Yeah. Well, the good news is if anybody sees me, you'll know exactly how I'm feeling.
Yes.
This episode of Webe Parents is brought to you by Webe Calm, the child calmer designed by doctors and loved by parents.
Struggling with bedtime routines or managing your child's anxiety? Webe Calm transforms deep breathing into a fun and engaging activity, helping kids find their inner calm. Perfect for bedtime stressful moments or anytime your child needs a little extra help to stay calm. Visit webecalm.com to learn more and bring tranquility to your family. Webe Calm, because we be in this together.
All right, so let's jump into letters from our listeners.
Yeah.
Want to do the first one?
Sure. So we got a letter that started with, I really resonated with the idea of smiling from warmth, not performance. But when I tried it with my 11-year-old after school, they just rolled their eyes. It felt like rejection. Am I doing something wrong? Oh, yes. And we hit upon that.
You said yes, they're doing something wrong?
No, yes, that's a pain point. That's an absolute pain point. I hear you. And I feel you. And we talked about that last time because I think that's the hardest part for parents is not only to be present to what you're experiencing, but to be differentiated enough to stand in that presence regardless of the feedback that you're getting from your external environment, aka your children. And it's hard. It's so hard. I notice that sometimes I have those episodes where I'll share something that I'm really excited about with the girls or an experience that we're going to have. And all I hear back from them is why that won't work, completely deflating my balloon. And I notice the shift from this joy that I just experienced to anger and resentment. And, so it is hard, and it's a beautiful practice to be able to stay present to our experience and regardless of how other people react to that.
You have to summon Ted Lasso.
Yes, Ted Lasso, our new favorite show. But yes, he is a great model of just being himself, regardless of the circumstances, regardless of what he gets back. He is stable and solid and lovable in that state.
Yeah. And to be able to show up, it's a skill that you practice, to be able to show up and not expect anything back.
Yes.
And that you are sharing and that you can meet all of your needs, even if that person doesn't contribute to your needs in that moment. So you practice that, and sometimes you want something back. But if you need something back, it's your offering is really a demand. It's the ability to put something out there and you don't have to be okay with it. You don't have to be okay with them not, giving you something back that you were hoping for. but you can empathize with them and yourself. You can, and that to me, that's where the nonviolent communication comes in is, oh, I know they care about me. Something must be going on for them that's preventing them from giving me what I just asked for.
Yes. And I'm also wondering, we talk about bringing it home. And one of the things about bringing it home is really explaining, inviting, and practicing it. When this is a new behavior that you're adopting and you have not sat with your family, it's foreign to them, there's a lack of trust sometimes.
Exactly.
And so it's kind of like, what's going on here? Or, what's behind that? What's coming at me versus, oh, this is my mom or my dad practicing and cultivating joy.
Yeah. When we change our relational energy, other nervous systems need time to build trust with that.
So part of the eye rolling could be, I don't understand it. I'm uncomfortable with it. I'm interpreting it as something completely different than what it is. And so even in those moments, and I found that has worked actually really well with the girls is if I stop and rather than react to their response, right, I take a beat and decide how I want to show up with curiosity, not with judgment, and just say, hey, I'm wondering what came up with that eye rolling.
Yeah, it's really good practice because if you could show up with curiosity, you are in that nonviolent communication consciousness, an NVC consciousness. The curiosity to say, well, if, and this happens when you and I get in an argument and I'll say, you'll ask the question, where's my phone? And I'll say, the phone's on the table. And you'll be like hurt and annoyed. You say, why are you yelling at me? And I'm just asking you for my phone. And I'll think to myself, I could initially get defensive and say, I wasn't yelling at you. I was yelling to you where your phone was. Then we start arguing about whether I was yelling at you or not. Versus curiosity would be, well, I know I wasn't yelling at her, or at least that wasn't what I was trying to communicate. So I'm curious, how did she hear me? And then she says, I say, oh, so did you hear me yelling at you like you then had a thought that I was frustrated or irritated or impatient? And you say, yes. And I'll say, oh, well, I can see why you feel hurt and sad when you ask for your phone and you think that you're getting back irritation. So now my curiosity allowed me to empathize with you and not take on water. And I can say, of course she got sad and hurt if she thought I was communicating irritation. Even though I wasn't trying to communicate irritation, I get it. That allows you, to me, that's the beauty of nonviolent communication.
So if you've been listening to us for a while, we get a lot of questions about what to do in tricky parenting or relationship moments.
Yeah, and if I'm being real, I'm asking Alona those same questions all the time. I get into those same tricky moments as everybody else does. And as much as we wish we could be there for each other in those exact moments, we just can't always be.
Yeah, that's why we partnered with the amazing team at Connectin to create something we truly believe in, an AI coach called Amari. And we didn't just lend our names, we helped build it and train it and brought in everything we've learned about emotional healing, connection, and communication.
Yeah, we spent years training and learning, and we've created Amari, who is so calm and grounded, listens deeply and responds with warmth, clarity, and compassion. There's no judgment, no reactivity. In fact, we tasked our children with trying to get Amari reactive, and they still haven't succeeded. It's just steady support when you need it most.
We use it ourselves all the time, especially when we feel stuck or overwhelmed. And Amari's really helped us pause, reflect, given us insight that helps us come back to each other.
Yeah, we designed Amari to help you strengthen the relationships that matter most, starting with the one you have with yourself.
And we are so excited that you can try it now at webeparents.com and click on Webe Connectin with a K to sign up. And when you have your Amari moment, please let us know, as we'd love to hear about it.
So another letter here is, I've been trying to bring more presence to our family moments, but my partner seems irritated by it. Like I'm being too much or over earnest. What do I do when I'm trying to change the field, but I feel alone in it? Well, I get it. There's no such thing as too much. When somebody says you're too much, they imply that they know exactly the right amount and that they're the judge of that. And that's not true. There's no such thing as a right amount of anything. And if you're being honest and wanting to connect in a way that isn't resonating for them, then translate what they're saying to be like, that's about them. There's something in them that's not resonating with how I'm communicating or how I'm showing up. And it doesn't mean that how I'm showing up or communicating is wrong. And then I'm going to be curious. I wonder what it is. What thoughts, what stories are forming in their head in response to my communication?
I also think that many of us are conditioned in a right-wrong mentality, and we know the right way to show up, the right level of emotion to express. Vulnerability is wrong. You shouldn't be this vulnerable, or you shouldn't express emotions so freely. You should be more guarded, more reserved, more composed, more stable, whatever that means. Then if you start showing up differently, start showing up with more vulnerability, it's threatening. Because if all of a sudden the way you're showing up is right, that says the way I'm showing up is wrong, versus, oh, you can show up differently and I like it, I don't like it, it's resonating, it's not resonating. But there's no space to do that when we're in that right-wrong mentality. And then separate from that is that I think vulnerability, because it's not a practice that we do regularly, feels threatening to a lot of people.
Yeah, I think the nervous system, anytime there's a change, even though it might be a change to increase connection, they're going to say something's off here. And is this dangerous? Is this emotionally dangerous? So that's where it's helpful to actually name your shift. And I'm trying to practice being in my body more, or I'm trying to practice connecting to joy more, or I'm trying to practice sharing more authentically. And if at any point this feels uncomfortable, you're not clear what I'm doing or not trusting what I'm doing, just let me know so I can do it differently. That builds trust by letting them know. It also gives them an invitation to bring up their discomfort if it comes out at any point. Because you don't want to just focus on what you want to do differently. You want to focus on the connection between you and the other person, which means it also matters how they're receiving what you're doing differently.
I think it also disarms them, because a lot of the times when we're being nice, kill them with kindness, we want something back. And so it's, all of a sudden this person's being really nice and vulnerable. Right. What is lurking behind that door number 2 here?
Right. Either something bad happened, they're going to tell me later, or they want something, but there's an ulterior motive.
Yes. Versus, this is just kind of how they want to be. Separate, that differentiation. And that you don't have to go there if you're not ready to go there. That's a lot of times, partners or parents and children are enmeshed. We kind of live attached to one another versus separately. There's me, there's you, no, there's us. So is us feeling okay? Are we feeling vulnerable? Are we, but that isn't the state. There's you and how you're feeling, and there's me and how I'm feeling. And if I feel pressured to do what you're doing, that's going to be off-putting and it's going to be disconnecting. And I'm not going to welcome the state that you're in.
Right.
So I love that. So this is another example of really bringing it home by starting with explaining what you're doing and inviting a space, even if people don't want to jump on board the train, inviting a space for you to be experiencing that.
I like it. You want to do one more letter and then we can jump into the game tension trade-offs?
Ooh, okay. Okay, we got this letter. This episode made me realize how often I've smiled while feeling resentment, how I've offered connection as currency, not as a gift. How can I repair that? I love naming the opportunity to repair. That's already beginning the process, is trusting that you can do it differently. And just because this is how it's been done doesn't lock you in to this fixed family dynamic. And I think it's important to honor that so many of us are living in survival mode. I catch myself in that so often. And in survival mode, I'm guarded. I'm scanning for danger. I have a small, constricted, fear-based scarcity mentality. And so there is that trade-off. Like if I'm going to be connected, to be joyful, I need something back. Versus this is how I can show up just because this is how I choose to show up, because it makes me feel more alive, because it makes me feel better in my own body.
Right. Yeah. And I think it's important that trust builds not from these big gestures, but from this consistent congruence and this open communication about, hey, this is what's going on inside of me. If I'm not sure what to do, I always go vulnerable. I always think that that's the beginning of connection. If you're not sure where to go, share what's going on inside of you, even if that's confusion around where to go next.
I also think this is a great example of something that we talked about in the past, where this is the cost of obligation, of feeling obliged to smile even when you're feeling resentment, and the cost of that down the line. If you don't feel like smiling, don't smile.
Yeah.
That's what's authentic. That's what's real. That's you owning your present moment. Exactly.
And it's so important, because if you've been smiling all the time and you stop, your partner's going to say, what's going on here?
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, if you keep smiling when you're feeling different things, your partner's going to be saying, what's going on here?
Or you build a resentment that then makes connection currency over something that's desired.
Right. And if you're on the other end of it, to know that this person is not consistently smiling because they have nothing better to do. It's coming often from a wounded place. And they were more accepted when they smiled, or that's what was allowed. Or if they didn't smile, the parents got all into their business. Or so to create an environment where it feels safer for them not to smile. Mm-hmm. You can really contribute to your partner by helping them create a space of safety if they're open to sort of just gently, not that it's right to not smile when they're not happy, but more just to say, hey, do we want to start stepping into authenticity? Would it be helpful to you if I did X, Y, or Z to create a safer container for you to show up just a little bit more authentically? And what could that look like for you?
Yeah. I think the invitation is to practice cultivation of joy as part of that sense of feeling more alive in joy. But really, it's about being seen in the full capacity of where you are in the moment.
Exactly.
So remembering that.
I love it.
All right. So what's this game we're playing?
So this game, we're going to try it out. I don't know if it's really a game or more of like, questions, but basically I'm going to give you a dilemma and I'm going to give you two choices and ask you some questions about it. Okay.
Oh boy, I'm on the spot. Okay.
Yeah, you're on the spot.
Okay. Here.
So your child is yelling and you're already on edge. Do you set the boundary calmly but firmly, even if your tone is flat and your heart is closed? Or do you wait until you can access warmth, even if that means not setting a limit in the moment? So let's answer that one first.
Oof, I have to pick one of those?
Yeah.
I don't like any of those.
All right, so
I would probably set a boundary calmly but firmly, but my tone would be flat and my heart would be closed.
Yeah. And that's just something that we all have these like bad choices to make. And it's like, what do we do? But if you had to pick one. And then, you know, right now you're grounded and you could say, okay, well, here's what I would do differently.
Yes.
So I'll give you a chance to answer that now that I forced you to pick one. It's your right.
In an ideal world, I would want to be able to express where I'm at and to ask for some grace. You know, even if that means not setting the limit in the moment.
Yeah.
It probably depends on how unresourced I am too.
Right. That affects us for sure. What part?
I'm already on edge. So
you're already on edge. You're under resourced. What part of you is more scared? The part that hates disconnection or the part that fears chaos?
I hate disconnection.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, really. That was an easy one.
Okay. And what does your child learn from your timing about safety, authority, and availability? What does your child learn from your timing? Because I think that's the challenge. We're like, we got to do this right now, or we got to respond right now. And I know that was one of my big ones. And you actually like to wait and say, okay, well, I'm going to let that, I'm not ready to answer that question yet.
Yeah. And often I can do that. But when I'm already on edge, when I've had enough, and it's funny because the girls very much know that. They're like, oh, we know you've had enough, because then the boundary comes, harsh. And the message is very clear. I have had enough. This is over. This is my way now. But I think that's what they learn. Like, if that happens regularly, there's an inconsistency, a lack of trust around how your parent is going to respond. And then there's that authoritarian power over dynamic that slowly builds over time.
Yeah.
And I think in a power over dynamic, it works very, very well as long as your children submit. But when they start rebelling, that's when that whole thing comes to a head, which is why the teenage years are so challenging for so many people.
Yeah. Yeah. Makes sense. So can you name a moment this week where doing it right overrode doing it real? So right versus real. That happened for you this week?
Oh, yes. So yes, because it was a pain point. I got triggered so much that I couldn't show up the way that I hoped that I would. And it was, the girls had a disagreement. I don't want to get into the disagreement, but it was a pretty big one. And I felt sadness for both of them, but above that was the sadness in their disconnection and, getting kind of sucked into, oh my God, they're never going to talk to one another again. They hate each other. And can't they just see their sisters? Sisters have to ride above everything else, And so I think it was doing it real, but it definitely wasn't doing it right. I had to really bite my tongue. And I think the lack of congruence there was very visible, even though my words were calm and my words aimed at connection. The energy behind that was so urgent, an urgent need for repair. We need to figure out how to fix this quickly. And I think that has cost.
Yeah. And now, some of these disconnections are pretty big. We had to do a whole ride to school just to hear each other's feelings and needs. And then you had to do a redo on the way home. We couldn't even fit it into one ride to school.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes their bodies, their nervous system needed time the night before and then that morning. And then by the next afternoon, it was ready to shift. So sometimes a lot of people think you can get all needs handled and connection completed in one conversation. And often it's multiple.
Yes. Let's do another one.
You pick one for me, Em.
Okay. So your partner is missing the moment. Do you swallow your disappointment to keep peace in front of the kids, or name it, even though it might rupture the moment for everyone? So your partner isn't present to a moment.
I would probably, if I was resourced, I would swallow it to keep the peace. And if I was under-resourced, I'd probably name it and blow up the whole thing.
Ooh, yes, I definitely under-resourced. Yes. I resonate with that. But I think if you're resourced, you don't swallow it. You show up.
I'm saying if I had to pick between these two.
Oh, got it. Yeah.
Now, if I'm resourced and didn't have to pick between these two, this is like a would you rather. So it's not, neither is great. But if I'm resourced, then I'm actually going to name it with connection.
Yes, I'm realizing I don't do well with do you. I always look.
You don't like do you right?
What's option C?
Yeah, and the kids always have like, would you want to eat a spider or a scorpion? I'm like,
neither.
You got to pick one. So,
okay. What story does your body tell you about being too much or too little or not being heard or seen?
That is one. I have these parts that I call the garter and the kneader. And the kneader is like wants to be received with warmth and love and care. And the garter is the one that says, hey, let's tone it down, make yourself a little smaller. Why don't you want a little bit less so that you don't get disappointed? So that's how I have these two parts that are, and the other day I was standing and picking up the kids from a theater class, and there was this group of women talking, and my instinct when, because there's a little bit of social anxiety, I would call it, where I'm like, they're not going to necessarily, want to talk to me or, whatever the reason was. And my initial instinct was to go sit on a chair and get on my phone and actually literally get smaller. But instead, what I did was I said, oh, look, there's the garter showing up to try and protect me from not, like if I did speak up, I wouldn't have been received or they wouldn't have responded, let's say. So the garter was trying to protect against that. So I definitely am seeing that dynamic now. And at this time, I actually didn't get on my phone. And I stood there and I said, okay, well, let me see if I can connect to a smile. But I think it was one of those creepy smiles that was like I was forcing it because I was still a little nervous or whatever. So, hey, I'm baby steps here.
Yes.
But I at least stood there. I didn't get small. I stood there with my creepy smile and was all good.
Oh, that's funny. And if you were to rupture the moment for everyone else, what does that teach your kids about rupture, repair?
If I was going to rupture the world, what does that teach the kids?
Yeah, if you rupture the moment, if you show up.
Oh, it definitely teaches them how to disconnect. If that's they can do that well on their own though, so they don't need my help.
And repress and suppress, I think, their authenticity. Show up in artificial harmony because there's such a big cost.
Yes, that's a good one.
To show up authentically.
Exactly. Ditto.
But I think, and this goes back to the first letter from the listener, I think this is where the value of knowing that there's that opportunity for repair. That's something that I did not connect to when the girls were fighting was there will be room for repair. There will be room for, I didn't trust that in that moment. And probably because I was under-resourced and because it just seemed so big to me.
Yeah.
So
it's sort of like when we talk about this with families, when we're doing couples work, and to remind them when there's a big fight, I pause it and I'll step back and I'll say, hey, we have a lot of trust. We worked together for quite some time. And every time there's been a disconnection, by the end of the connected conversation, you both are seeing each other's beautiful needs that were behind the pain that you were feeling. So can we just step back and remember that and trust that we're going to get there again, even if it feels right now really big? And I think that those exercises, sort of stepping out, are really helpful. And then you build that trust that, hey, we'll get there. But it's hard when you're in the heat of the moment to say, hey, they've disconnected many a times, and every single time they've repaired and reconnected.
Yes.
But for some reason in the heat of the moment, we forget that.
Yes. So that's a good one to remember. Repair is a good one to remember.
Just one last thing.
You don't have to have a perfect smile. You don't have to pretend to be someone you're not. There's room for you, there's room for your authenticity. There's space to choose how you want to show up and to lean into that. You don't have to be perfect.
I love that. There is space for your full self to be seen and held.
Even if you're the one seeing and holding it.
Yeah.
Which is really the ultimate lesson.
Very sweet. Wonderful. Well, we'd love to hear from people. We really appreciate you listening. Please reach out to us at parents@webetogether.com. And then, of course, we really appreciate if you would subscribe and rate and review the podcast. It helps us spread the word and get out there. And we really appreciate everybody's support.
Yes, and please send us your letters, send us your questions, send us your comments. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, everybody.